So, Pit of Peril. This one is set in North Africa, I believe it is. Well, it's hard to tell. It starts off with all of this stock footage of wildlife, like elephants and lions and crocodiles and whatnot, and it's essentially about this big military deforesting vehicle called the Sidewinder that falls into a massive crater and is stuck on its side so that it can't move. And with all of this heat building up and smoke and fire, the people inside are suffocating, and that means international rescue are the only people who can pull them out. And they actually attempt, the military attempt to take them out, like, before international rescue arrives. They actually try to do it themselves.
That goes to show that not everyone may have heard of international rescue being such a secretive organisation until someone actually says the word rescue, so presumably they read the story about them saving the fire flash in the first episode in the paper, because you see the newspaper at the end of that episode saying, "International Rescue, who are they?" Presumably the men in the military here have heard of International Rescue, and you hear them actually calling for help using a radio frequency, because it's established in the first episode that Thunderbird 5 can hear absolutely everything on every radio frequency.
Yeah, that's right. With all of this futuristic technology, it's set in 2065 after all.
Yeah, we've got to mention that in the first episode, and that was exactly 100 years on from the air date of the first episodes. It says in the opening credits, in Roman numerals, 1964, because most TV series are made the year before they're broadcast, and these were the first broadcast in 1965.
But let's talk a bit about the actual this giant vehicle, the Sidewinder. I'd never noticed this at first. Obviously, suspension of disbelief when you're a kid, but it's the most flimsy fucking machine I've ever seen. This big crab-like, vehicle that plucks trees out of the air, and it's supported on these tiny little legs that walk like that.
It's like a spider.
It's like it's on stilts. It's like, try and imagine a tortoise on 4 stilts, and that's what it is.
And the first things you see it doing is grabbing hold of trees and pulling them up completely out of the ground. So, is this episode probably got a message against deforestation?
Yeah, like all of the animals are seen running away in panic as it's tearing up trees, and it's like, karma, I guess.
Presumably, yes.
This machine just falling into this great big, hole in the ground that's, well, they say later on that it's a dumping ground for all of this World War II equipment that was left over.
Which kind of helps establish the futuristic setting of Thunderbirds. And what I find so odd is that the machine is called a Sidewinder. Now, for those of you who don't know, a Sidewinder is a snake. But this machine looks more like a crab or a beetle. So I guess, Sidewinder sounds a bit more cool than the beetle or the land crab, maybe. So.
I have to say, I didn't really know what a Sidewinder was while I was watching it. I mean, it sounded electronic, like Sidewinder. Maybe it sounds like Screwdriver.
Well, whenever I hear Sidewinder these days, from listening to R.E.M. for so many years, I just can't help thinking of the song The Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight whenever I hear Sidewinder, Calling to wake her. Calling to wake her. Calling to wake her. Calling to wake her. Very catchy song, look it up.
Awesome. What I was curious, it's quite a, there are some graphic moments in it, like the people really are in danger. I mean, I kind of noticed when I was a kid as well. First of all, when they're trying to save the people themselves before calling international rescue, the military lower down 2 people on these winches right down into the pit that's like 300 feet deep, so they can get a look at the machine and assess the situation. When they get down there, they actually scream in terror.
There's actually smoke coming out of one of them's clothes.
Yeah, they've started to catch on fire, and they're pulling them out. They're like, get them out of there, get them out of there. And as they're being pulled up, they're all blackened, and they're covering their faces.
And the next shot, you see them covered in bandages, as if they've been in a war.
It's quite horrific.
Now, you'd never see that in a kids' show nowadays. And another thing you see is, there's a scene when the officers are discussing what to do, and they've all got cigars, so you never see that anymore in a kids' show.
That as well, I think you'll notice in a couple more episodes, all of the Tracy brothers, I think it's Virgil who likes to smoke, especially in his portrait, he's there with a little cigarette. It's like...
He's the very suave one, Virgil,
yeah,
because he's playing the piano.
The fucking pianist, the smoking pianist, just like...
Yeah, he's very suave. Maybe he was into jazz or something, or hung around in beatnik bars or something. What I think's the best thing about this episode is we see the debut of Brains and just how brainy he really is. Now, for me, I didn't really realise this when watching as a kid, but I think the purpose of Brains' character is to say, kids, if you're a geek or a nerd who's obsessed with science or wanting to do good, don't worry if you get bullied at school, because you may save someone's life one day.
Yeah, positive role model for the geeky kids.
Yeah,
and talking of debuts as well, this is where we first see the Mole,
Ooh, yes.
which is one of the more famous pod vehicles in Thunderbird 2. Essentially just a big drilling machine that can bury so far underground.
And it actually looks like a mole when we look at it now, because the drill at the front actually looks like a snout.
I'm not sure what else there is to say about this. As far as episodes go, it's a very standard episode. I mean, it's just a straightforward rescue. Another race against time.
Yeah.
A straightforward rescue. But, it helps to establish the default that is Thunderbirds, so that the next episodes to come can differ away from it.
Yeah, this one was a race against time on land, because the first episode was a race against time in the air, so it's kind of saying these things can happen anywhere, on air, land, and I guess we're going to see soon on the sea.
But, relatively straightforward episode, in my honest opinion. Still a good one, but I think there are more exciting episodes that can, that we will see.
This is, I'd say, one of those filler episodes that's meant to, the purpose really is to show what International Rescue does. So if this was the first episode a kid was to see, they would get the idea that this is who International Rescue are. And we forgot to mention this in the last episode. If you look at the sashes on the Tracy brothers, the symbol for International Rescue is a hand reaching out. So it's saying, we're reaching out to you, we're going to help you no matter what.
That's some heavy-handed symbol. No pun intended, heavy-handed symbolism.
Oh, you and your puns.
But stick around, because we'll tackle the next couple of episodes as we go along, and I think the next episode is a more exciting one, the Perils of Penelope. So we'll see more of Lady Penelope and Parker as we get into that episode. But hope you enjoyed this one, Pit of Peril, and we shall see you later.
FAB.